I'm joined by one of the most influential voices in responsible healthcare AI, Dr. Brian Anderson, CEO of the Coalition for Health AI, CHAI, will share how certification frameworks and governance platforms are reshaping how AI systems are evaluated, deployed, and trusted in healthcare. You'll hear how CHAI is setting a national standard for AI quality and safety, and how Pacific AI is operationalizing that vision across risk management, testing, and monitoring.
Really want to start first by saying thank you so much for the Applied AI Summit for inviting me here to share a little bit about CHAI and the work that we're doing, building trust in healthcare through certification of the end-to-end governance platform that Pacific AI has. So you can go advance to the next slide. So first, let me share just briefly a few thoughts about CHAI and how we started. So CHAI started in the middle of the pandemic when you had a public-private partnership working collaboratively to solve a lot of the issues that were coming at us, of course, related to COVID-19. But it was in that space that we appreciated the impact that you had the public sector and the private sector working together. The question that we asked, is there something more that we can be doing? We looked at AI, and the animating question that we asked initially was, do we have consensus on what responsible AI means at a technically specific level that would inform the developer community, that would inform the deployer community, health systems, life science companies, and payers, as well as importantly, the phase of a model's life cycle that is around its monitoring, its governance, that longitudinal phase? The answer we quickly came to is we don't. We have high level agreement around the principles that you see here on the screen, principles like usefulness, fairness, safety, transparency. But what we don't have is technical specificity about what each of these actually means. And so that's been the mission of CHAI since we launched, is taking these 5 core principles of responsible AI and really digging into levels of technical specificity and what they actually mean. Next slide. And so when we look around the ecosystem of CHAI, we divide it up into 4 main pillars. There's the convene pillar, there's the develop pillar, the certify, and the educate. Let me just briefly touch on each of these. In the convening space, CHAI is fundamentally about a community of private sector innovators that come from technology companies, health systems, patient community advocates, health plans and payers, life science companies. The list goes on. There's about 3,000 to 4,000 different organizations that come together both in person through some of the summits, as well as probably most importantly through the working groups, where the actual consensus best practice frameworks are built, where we're defining what responsible AI looks like, use case by use case. The develop phase is taking that and then actually building that into playbooks, actionable things that inform the developers, the deployers, the governance committees. Importantly, once you have a common definition of what good responsible AI looks like, you can then build a suite of tools and services around that that help ensure that you have the ability to measure a model's performance, a model's alignment to that common definition of what responsible AI looks like. And so in CHAI, what we do is we certify an ecosystem of assurance providers around that. And I'll get to that in a little bit second. The last pillar, and also very important, is this concept of education. AI is moving so quickly, and we have an urgent need to upskill and educate the nurses, providers, and broadly patients and consumers in society about how to think critically about these AI tools that are being used in consequential use cases in health. So those are the 4 pillars of CHAI: convene, develop, certify, and educate. Next slide. Now, when we think about the technical specifications that CHAI is doing and the work around governance, it's really important to think about an AI model from its life cycle standpoint. You can see here 6 phases, but I can boil it down to 3 basic ones that I mentioned earlier: the deployment phase, the development phase, the deployment phase, and the governance and monitoring phase. Each one of those phases has different equities, different applications of those various principles. For example, transparency as a principle has really important considerations for the developer community to fill out a model card, for the deployment community to understand what the indications and the limitations of a model's uses are in an actual clinical workflow, as well as being able to actually measure and monitor those models' performance with real metrics in the governance phase. So it's important to keep in mind whenever we think about building these technical standards is looking at it from an AI model's lifecycle. Next slide. Now, when we think about an AI model's lifecycle, each one of those phases I just showed you has an assurance concept that is relevant to it. Let me give an example. At the developer phase, it is really important any developer or product company worth its salt is going to have an internal quality assurance process. Of course, they're going to train their models, and ideally they want to train their models on high quality data, but they're also going to need to validate that model prior to commercializing it and selling it. And so in Chai, we've stood up this ecosystem of assurance resource providers that have access to high quality data to help accelerate that kind of innovation. When you ask any startup company out there, what is the number one biggest challenge they have in developing health AI models? It is access to high quality data. Bar none. That is by far the biggest challenge. And so we believe to accelerate the innovation space, we need to have assurance resource providers that allow for easy, privacy-preserving access to data sets to train models and to validate them. Now, importantly, when you move past the pre-market use cases and the deployment use case, and you're into this governance use case, it's really important to have robust governance and a partnership with a technology company and a health system, most likely, that doesn't necessarily have the technical skills or infrastructure to be able to monitor a model as robustly as it might need to be if it's in a highly consequential use case. And so part of the work that we're doing and focusing in these assurance resource providers is identifying groups like Pacific AI that have the ability to partner with a health system, that have a platform that they can enable. So health systems have the ability to rigorously and robustly monitor a model's performance appropriately at the risk level that that model's use case is being used in. Next slide. And so when we think about this ecosystem of assurance and the various phases of an AI model's lifecycle, we think about data partners, and you can see the list of data partners that are providing access in partnership with health systems to high quality real world data. We think about that monitoring and governance phase of a model's lifecycle, and you can see the list of governance platforms, notably Pacific AI, and David and his team are one of them. And importantly, we also think about this concept of testing and validating models, both in the pre-market phase for a developer needing to validate models that they've trained on different data sets, as well as in the procurement use case for the end customers, health systems, payers who want to have essentially an evaluation performed before they make a procurement decision. And you can see some of the examples of the testing and validation companies. And then, of course, actually getting all that work done, having service providers like Eisner Amper to help connect all the dots and actually do the work where the rubber hits the road is an example of consulting groups that have come along into this partner ecosystem. Next slide. So you may be asking, so what does it mean for Chai to certify this ecosystem? When we started Chai, we realized that there is a trust problem with AI in general. The majority of Americans do not trust AI. Survey after survey shows that. When you look at increasingly consequential use cases where life and death is literally potentially on the line, people trust AI even less. And so we believe in Chai that it is critically important to create an ecosystem of trusted third-party resource providers that can help build that trust and build that trust through transparency, through competency, and through expertise. And so in Chai, we rigorously certify companies that want to be part of this ecosystem, that want to be a trusted third party to do the training, to help with the training, to help with the validation and testing and monitoring, to build that trust. You can see here some highlights of what go into that certification. Ensuring that these technology companies are conflict of interest free, meaning if you're a health system, you want to be able to turn to a partner that doesn't have commercial entanglements with the vendor itself, maybe that they might be monitoring. So conflict of interest free. Ensuring that they have privacy and security certification. We all appreciate that health data is incredibly sensitive. Clinical workflows and the embeddedness of that data with the model can create complicated technical architecture. And so having things like SOC 2 compliance is important to us and important to the community. The Chai community does a lot of work in defining what this common definition of responsible AI looks like and what the metrics are that go along with it. So traceability to ensure that these technology companies apply and use those frameworks and use those T&E metrics, testing and evaluation metrics, is really important. And finally, having a data catalog, if you're one of the data vendors, ensuring that we have common language, common ontologies, and data dictionaries is also important from a transparency perspective. Those all go into the certification requirement. Next slide. So Chai believes in transparency, as I've mentioned. We are launching a nationwide registry where the governance platform vendors, health systems, technology companies can come together and in a transparent way share with the public things like model cards, things like performance outcome metrics, how models are actually performing when they're deployed locally, so that we all can learn from one another. This is a list of some of the health systems, solution providers, and supporters that have already signed on for the launch of this. You'll be hearing much more about it in November when we launch this publicly. Next slide. Importantly, though, I wanted to drill down into two particular things, and I apologize, you might not be able to see it very easily on the slide here, but one of them is the outcomes. So this is an example of a model card. This is an example from NABLA. And in this slide, you can see some of the details about the attributions of the model, how the model is trained, an overview of it, description of the data sets, but importantly, the outcomes. How is that model actually performing locally? You only get that by having robust, rigorous governance and monitoring of a model's performance using commonly agreed upon metrics. That's what we're building towards in Chai. That's why we're so excited to be partnering with Pacific AI and companies like them, because they are going to enable that kind of insight that we can share transparently with one another to learn from and improve the use of AI in use cases. Next slide. So with all that, I am really proud to share that Pacific AI is a Chai certified assurance resource provider. They're offering lower cost and faster adoption to AI. If you have a robust governance platform, it makes it easier to do that. Independent and credible validation. Again, one of those important criteria is conflict of interest free disclosures. Pacific AI checks the box on that. They also are ensuring standard and future proofing of compliance. Healthcare is a highly regulated, complex legally space. Notably, health systems are legally liable for the use of their models. And so when we think about patient safety events or adverse events, it's really important to have that rigorous governance that enables that robust compliance at the appropriate levels. Pacific AI does that. We're really excited, David, about Pacific AI and the certification that you have. I'll pass it over to you now.
Brian, thank you very much for the introduction and the kind words. I would say I'm the Pacific AI team are just as excited to be part of the Chai community, right? And we've been involved with Chai since the very beginning, and it's been fantastic to see the team grow, see the community grow, and really see those the education programs, the certification programs, and the public program, right? Like the public model registry outcomes coming along. And you definitely have my commitment that we'll continue contributing and being part of that community. And with that, I want to talk a bit about what Pacific AI governance platform actually includes. And there are kind of three main things that you can enjoy or that we can help you do. One thing is the Pacific AI policy suite, which is intended for organizations who are looking for a much faster, much cheaper way to stay basically in compliance with all the different laws, regulation, industry standards that are coming into space in this space and stay up to date. The second is the actual governance tools and platforms to be able to manage all of your AI systems, have an interaction. So if you are a health system and you're dealing with 200 different teams building systems, you need to be able to manage risk. You need to be able to understand what phases they are in, make sure they're actually doing all the right things that they promised you, that they've been testing and monitoring production. You have a tool that enables you to automate a lot of that work. And the third piece is the Guardian piece, which does automated testing evaluation specifically for Gen AI and agentic AI system, and we'll talk a bit about that. So the first piece of what Pacific AI does is the policy suite, which you're welcome to go right now and download from the website. It's a free tool. Well, what was done here is a lot of legal work and compliance work to find, read, understand, and unify more than 250 different laws, different regulations, and different industry standards, so that once you've done all that, and once you've made them actionable in one policy suite, and you adopt this policy suite as something that your organization follows, you're pretty much guaranteed to operate legally in the US, or in Europe, or in one of more than 30 countries. And our goal was to cover at least all of the 30 largest economies in the world, with the exception of Russia and China. So if you're concerned about, okay, what do I do with the Chai guidelines and with the NIST guidelines and the ISO guidelines, and with the many US national laws that are there, the many state laws that have been built and have passed, and how do I know that I stay in compliance? This policy suite enables you to do that. One of the things where Pacific AI is unique, especially compared to more of the general purpose AI governance platform out there, is that it is specialized for healthcare. What it means that when we look at guidance frameworks, we not only look at general ones like the NIST AI risk management framework, but also at industry-specific ones like the CHI framework and other healthcare-specific guidance frameworks. And we also specifically track national, state, and local legislation in healthcare. So, for example, just in the past 3-4 months in the US, there were quite a few state laws regarding, for example, the fact that an AI cannot claim that it's a certified nurse, doctor, or practitioner. A few states are now starting to forbid AIs that make claims about being able to help in mental health situation. Several states are putting limitations around being able to make automated decisions to deny someone of health insurance. And that's part of really what our legal and compliance team is tracking, so that we can basically merge those into one unified set of policies. So whether you're doing risk management for the FDA, for the EU AI Act, or just trying to see what's acceptable, what's not within a broader policy, really you have someone who has done the work, understand really what needs to be done at which level of risk, and keeps you up to date. So we update this policy suite quarterly, and we've already had 4 releases since this started. Once you have the policies in place, people are trained, you have your AI governance committee, you have the basic organizational policies, procedures, role aligned. Then the next place is to have really the tools that enable you to automate that work. Because the reality is that compliance and governance, a lot of it feels and looks like administrative work. And if you have people who just run around and build very quickly those Gen AI systems, and now you tell them, look, stop, I need you to document, understand the risk, tell me what you're going to do about it, you're going to slow things down. And also, and that's a lot of the feedback we hear from healthcare systems, one of the challenges is that people don't really know how to do it. So you can ask someone, okay, you're implementing this chatbot, you're implementing this sepsis risk scoring algorithm. You need to do a full AI risk analysis, and the quality of what people submit and the quality of discussion is not consistent, because this is a very new discipline, and a lot of people are unaware of what they need to do, and have other jobs, right? Because they're working in revenue cycle, right? They're working in biomedical research, right? They have other domains. So the goal with this tool, with the Pacific AI Governor tool, is first of all to enable an enterprise to have an inventory of its AI projects, to have a separation between a central AI governance role and the AI and people who build AI systems, and usually would have one central AI governance team, but you can have 5 or 50 or 500 systems that are being built, are being piloted, are being deployed, right? Different stages of the CHI AI lifecycle. And what you need is really one place to be able to govern them, so that you understand what are these systems, who owns them, where are they deployed, what do they depend on, which vendors, which other models, and how do we manage them, and even know, right, when we need, for example, to review monitoring, right, to update certain controls. So this system enables you to do that. You can define systems, set them with owners, upload documents, and define the different risks within the system, have the roles and access to approve things like moving to the next stage, setting a risk level, and so on, which many laws and policies require. Another important concept is that when it comes to the core work, or for example here, publishing a CHI apply model card, which is something that's really fundamental within this product, right? The fact that the way you communicate the state of your project is on the model card, is the fact that some people really just don't know what all the fields mean within the model card. Okay, what really do I need to disclose at what level? It's similar when people need to do risk management. So what we wanted to do is really automate that logic. So what you can see here is an example of what we tell people, look, just upload whatever documentation you have on the project. Okay, in this case, it was a blog post. You can go to the model card, and then you can see you can just click generate, and basically tell the system, look, go read the documentation I uploaded about the project. That's what I already have, right? It can be a slide deck, a spec document, a website, whatever it is. Please read through it and generate the model card. Okay, so basically understand what this project is, understand what I gave you. Also, there's a knowledge base of common risks of like projects, right? So, if you have a project that, for example, is a patient-facing mobile app, here are the common risks to look at, and build my model card, right? Build my assurance document, build my risk management tasks. And of course, this is something that humans need to be able to review. And right now on the screen, as you can see, of course, you need to review them, and you can edit them. Okay, but one of our key goals here with the governor is not just to provide a document management system or a kind of an archive, but actually have an intelligent systems which understand AI governance, understands healthcare, and can help you actually do the risk analysis and actually write the proper model card so that the quality and the consistency is there as well. The third component of the Pacific AI suite is what we call the Guardian agent, which is a set of agents which basically runs testing and validations of LLM-based system. This is an automated set of test suites. So what you can do within the tool, you can define for each system different test suites and different kind of execution profiles. What's important is that they're very comprehensive, and out of the box, you already have roughly 100 different types of benchmarks that are there. For example, we've integrated the Stanford MedHelm benchmarks, so you have pre-built benchmark for tests like generating patient education material, accelerating medical research, doing coming up with a diagnostic, coming up with a treatment plan. But other than those tasks, you also have safety benchmarks. So we have built our own benchmarks for healthcare-specific red teaming, medical safety, medical ethics, demographic bias, as well as medical cognitive biases. And as a third execution engine, we use LangTest to test for bias and test for robustness and reliability of the models. And then what you're able to do, you're able to define a test suite. You're able to run it automatically against one or more LLM endpoints, and then you can compare them. So if you're building a system, you can say, okay, here's my system. Now I moved from GPT-4o to GPT-5, run all the tests. Let's see how I do. Or you can say, oh, I changed my RAG. Now this is version 17. Test is versus version 16. Let's see where I'm ahead, where I start, where I fall back. Or you can also do this in production over time, so you can make sure there is no drift, or if there is a drift, you can drill down, as you can see here, and see where it happens. And with that comes really one of the most important concepts, and this is something we do on a daily basis, and some of the things I've learned from my work at Johnson Labs, is that governance should not be something that you do once a quarter when you need to go to the committee. It should be really an integrated daily operation of how you run an AI system. So here, and I think you'll hear next in this conference, a case study of actually integrating this automated testing within the continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline of a system. Okay, so just the same way we test web-based system to make sure that they functionally work, and we have unit tests and integration tests. Now we'll have AI tests as well, and we can run them and decide whether a new version of the model has been released or not. We can also, once these results, this is used really for almost for daily debugging. Okay, if I move to a new version of LLM, and now my score on the criteria for showing empathy to patients is a bit lower, I can drill down and understand exactly in what questions this happens, and see maybe how I can change prompts, how I can change guardrail system architecture to improve on that, and then of course I can test again. And I can also use it for monitoring, right? So that when I have the actual production system, not only do I test that the system is up and that the LLM is there, actually on an ongoing regular basis, I test it for privacy violation, I test this for jailbreaking, I test this for medical ethics questions, I test it, for example, for patient safety, harmful suggestions and so on. So that in production, I'm not just testing that this is up and working like yesterday. I continuously test that it is compliant with all of my controls, and if anything is wrong, I can act on it. So overall, together, these three components cover out basically all of the requirements we have found within CHAI, within other framework, within the current legislation, to enable you to operate legally, to operate safely, and to prove that your system is really safe and effective. And with that, Brian, I want to turn it to you for any advice or final words to the community.
Yeah, well, I mean, just real quickly, for the community listening in, this is a great example of organizations coming together to build common definitions of what good, rigorous governance looks like. How do we understand transparency and the level of detail that's needed, and then build tools like the one you just saw a demo of that can automate that process to build model cards for inventory management, for maintaining robust monitoring. If folks want to get involved in this kind of work, in the technical working groups, in building the kind of trust that Pacific AI is building through robust, rigorous governance and monitoring, feel free to reach out to either David or myself. We'd love to include you as part of the community and all the work that we're doing. Thanks so much for your time and listening to us. Take care.